So very sadly, Scotty dies. That's not really what the story's about. This may sound weird, but I sometimes, when I think about the story, I forget that that even happens. It is just a story, so it is sad. It's a very sad story. But this Anne is really the main character here. Scotty dies. The doctor then suddenly changes, worried about a lawsuit. No, that's cynical. The doctor is much more sympathetic, connects with her much, much more. Dr. Francis was shaken. I can't tell you how badly I feel. I'm so very sorry. I can't tell you. He said as he led them into the doctor's lounge. There was a doctor sitting in a chair with his legs hooked over the back of another chair watching an early morning TV show. He was wearing a green delivery room outfit, loose green pants, green blouse, and a green cap that covered his hair. He looked at Howard and Anne and then looked at Dr. Francis. He got to his feet and turned off the set and went out of the room. Dr. Francis guided Anne to the sofa, sat down beside her, began to talk in a low, consoling voice. At one point, he leaned over and embraced her. She could feel his chest rising and falling evenly against her shoulders. She kept her eyes open and let him hold her. Howard went into the bathroom. The husband goes in the bathroom, but he left the door open. He's just washing his hands. He's not peeing in there. After a violent fit of weeping. So the husband can't even cry in front of her. And the loss of a child is very, very hard for a husband and wife to overcome, especially what seems like an only child. So she is distant still from Howard here in a way. So Dr. Francis is very consoling to her. They get home and Howard loses it. Finally, he lets loose. He's a guy. I don't understand that. He said, oh, Jesus, no, I don't understand, doctor. I just can't. So he finally lets down his guard, his control. So that's a good thing, right? He seemed full of some goodness she didn't understand. That's a heck of a line. Howard seemed to be full of, Dr. Francis put his arms, he seemed to be full of some goodness she didn't understand. There's so many walls, however thin, however thick, between people all the time, even husbands and wives, that now that there's almost no wall between the doctor and Anne and Howard, something she's been seeking, she almost didn't understand it. They get home and she says to Howard, he's gone and now we'll have to get used to it, to being alone. The words people choose are very telling. She doesn't say we're going to have to get used to it just being us. She says to being alone. It's very sad. Well, lo and behold, the baker calls again. Hello, for God's sake, who is this? What is it you want? You're Scotty, I got him ready for you. Now, this is just awful. He's talking about the cake. Her son Scotty has just died, and he says, I got him ready for you. Did you forget him? Oh, it's painful to read. You evil bastard. How can you do this, you evil son of a bitch? Scotty, have you forgotten about Scotty? And then he hangs up. Remember, he's just talking about a cake, right? She's thinking, just before midnight, she thinks. Just before midnight, the phone rings. You answer it, she said. Howard, it's him, I know. Hello, who is this? Hello, the line went dead. He hung up, Howard said. Whoever it was him, she said, that bastard. I'd like to kill him. I'd like to shoot him and watch him kick. Anne has very violent thoughts here. She's transferring the violence that she wants to, she's just feeling about the loss of her son. And it's so absurd that the son was hit, he was okay, and then he dies. She can be mad at that driver, but she doesn't know who that is. She's angry that her son's been taken from her. And she's going to direct it somewhere and she's going to direct it at the baker. It was him, that bastard. I'd like to kill him. Anne, my God. Could you hear anything in the background? A noise, machinery, something humming? Nothing, really, nothing like that. There wasn't much time. I think there was some radio music on. Yeah, there was a radio. That's all I could tell. I don't know what in God's name is going on, he said. If I could get my hands on him. It came to her. She knew who it was. Scotty, the cake, the telephone number. She pushed the chair away from the table and got up. Drive me down to the shopping center. She said, Howard, what are you saying, the shopping center? She realizes it's the baker who's been calling, and she's going to have a little session with him. There was a deep burning inside her, an anger that made her feel larger than herself. So she's got this, I guess, tiger mom is a term sometimes used. She's so scary, the baker reaches for a rolling pin to defend himself. Lady, I work 16 hours a day in this place to earn a living. I work day and night trying to make ends meet. No trouble now. He reached the counter, picked up a rolling pin. You want a cake or not? You want it half price. You know what? Just take the thing, he says. I know bakers work at night. They make phone calls at night too, you bastard. The baker continued to tap the rolling pin in his hand. He glanced out. Careful, careful. And then it all comes out of her, and this feeling of violence is gone. My son's dead, she said with a cold finality. He was hit by a car Monday morning. We've been waiting with him until he died. But of course, you couldn't be expected to know that, could you? Bakers can't know everything, can they, Mr. Baker? But he's dead, you bastard. Just as suddenly as it welled in her, the anger dwindled, gave way to something else, a dizzy feeling of nausea. She leaned against the wooden table that was sprinkled with flour, put her hands over her face, began to cry. It isn't fair, she said. It isn't fair. So she's sort of moving through the stages of grief here, and she's finally acknowledging, he's dead, you bastard. And now she's calm a little bit. Of course, badass Howard is standing behind her, and he's, shame on you. The baker put the rolling pin back on the counter. Please sit down, he said. Let me get you a chair, he said to Howard. Sit down now, please. Please sit down, you people. Anne wiped her eyes and looked at the baker. I wanted to kill you, said. I wanted you dead. The baker cleared a space for them. Finally, Anne is getting a connection that she's been seeking the whole story. She had a pretty good one with the doctor. And the baker is getting a connection he hasn't had for a very, very long time with people. It's a small, good thing. And what do you say to a mom who's just lost her child? There's not a lot to say. But he says exactly what she needs. He opens himself up to her. She just wants someone to connect with. That's all she wanted before Scotty was hit and killed. And so his opening to her is exactly what she needed. And then let me say how sorry I am, the baker said, putting his elbows on the table. God alone only knows how sorry. Listen to me, I'm just a baker. I don't claim to be anything else. Maybe once, maybe years ago, I was a different kind of human being. I've forgotten. I don't know for sure, but I'm not any longer if I ever was. Now I'm just a baker. That don't excuse my doing what I did. It doesn't excuse his grammar either. I know, but I'm deeply sorry. I'm sorry for your son. Sorry for my part in this, the baker said. He spread his hands out on the table and turned them over to reveal his palms. I don't have any children myself, so I can only imagine what you must be feeling. All I can say to you now is that I'm sorry. Forgive me if you can, the baker said. I'm not an evil man, I don't think. Not evil like you said on the phone. She got him thinking. You got to understand, what it comes down to is I don't know how to act anymore, it would seem. Please, let me ask you if you can find it in your hearts to forgive me. That is an amazing piece of dialogue right there. And I feel it sometimes, but I see it in people more than I feel it. I don't know how to act anymore, it would seem. I see people who don't know how to act anymore. I see people, little road rage incidents, anger and hatred in people, misdirected. It shouldn't be directed at anyone. They just don't, and when you don't feel connected to other people, it's easy to turn and to hate them. And this guy says, I don't know how to act anymore, it would seem. Let me ask you, can you find in your hearts to forgive me? Now he's sitting there like this. If I remember, I'll try to drop in a picture right here. Yep. Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Jesus' breaking of the bread and the sharing of the wine. Breaking of the bread right here. And it's a communion that we still recreate in our Christian churches. A communion, the three of them are communing, and a forgiveness of the sins, right? Jesus, God gave his only son. Most of you know the story. And you are forgiven of your sins at the communion table every so often. Eating is a small good thing in a time like this, he said. He gives them rolls. Anne was suddenly hungry. They are all better for this moment. It's a gigantic bad thing that she lost Scotty, but at least there's a small good thing here. And he must sense the very positive effect that his sharing has on Anne, because he opens up further. They listened carefully. Although they were tired and in anguish, they listened to what the baker had to say. They nodded when the baker began to speak of loneliness, of the sense of doubt and limitation that had come to him in his middle years. He told them that what it was like to be childless all those years, to repeat the days with the ovens endlessly full and endlessly empty, the party food, the celebrations he'd worked over, icing knuckle deep, the tiny wedding couples stuck in cakes, hundreds of them, no, thousands by now. Birthdays, just imagine all those candles burning. He had a necessary trade. He was a baker. He was glad he wasn't a florist. Our author was a tulip picker for a while. Maybe he didn't like florists. It was better to feeding people. It was better smell any time than flowers. Smell this, the baker said. Oh, I'm hungry. It was a heavy bread, but rich. They smelled it, and then he had them taste it. He had the taste of molasses and coarse grains. They swallowed the dark bread. They talked on into the morning, the high pale cast of light in the windows, and they did not think of leaving. So, to review, Anne tries to connect with the baker. She fails. The man in the car is not connected to Scotty. He drives off. The doctor is disconnected. Coma schmoma. The nurse is disconnected. The phlebotomist says he's a sweetie but doesn't show a lot of interest. Franklin's family is like, we don't want to, okay, we'll listen until you leave, lady. The orderlies don't speak English. Then, after Scotty dies, she's very connected to the doctor. And the baker provides this service to her of opening up to her and connecting with her. Doesn't say much about Scotty. He didn't know Scotty. He doesn't know what to say. He just spills his soul, which he hasn't done in a long time. And that makes her feel better. She also reconnects with the husband a little bit. So yeah, I like Anne. Occasionally a student wants to say, oh, she imposes her worldview on others, that everybody has to connect. No, get over it. Human connections are good. Maybe we don't always want to do it, but we need to be good. We need to be kind to each other like the men in the open boat. And this story is about a woman who's always trying to do that and kind of gets pushed back a little bit, right? She hits the thin walls that everybody puts up until, fortunately, when she really needs it, there's this incident with the baker and he opens to her and connects with her, and it makes it a little better. So the baker has no connection to Scotty getting hit and killed. The phone calls were difficult, but this is a happy ending in the sense that without the baker, it's her and Howard sitting home still kind of awkwardly trying to connect with each other. But here, the baker is sitting with them. They are together. They're breaking bread. They are at the communion table, and there is a forgiveness of sins. Human connections. That's what life is about. Human connections. Cake is good too, but this is a story about human connections.